Through the Gates is produced under the support of the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management to enhance, promote, and defend the North American model of wildlife conservation and responsible wildlife management. That's our mission. We're engaged in fighting at every level so that wildlife management remains science-based and conservation continues to work for our wildlife. To learn more and join the movement, visit SaveTheHuntColorado.com. The North American model of wildlife conservation is the greatest conservation model in the world. It's a success story that should be shared and celebrated because everybody is a part of it. So we're here for another episode of Through the Gates. Got a great opportunity to sit down with Mark Turner in Idaho Springs. And Mark has been a good supporter of not only the conservation efforts in Colorado, but also with what we did on Proposition 127. And so, Mark, I'll turn it over to you to give an introduction and let us know who you are, what you've been doing, and just tell us about you and your life, and we'll go from there.
Okay. I'm Mark Turner. I'm a resident of Idaho Springs, a native resident, and I guess I'll start with my grandfolks. My grandfolks moved to Idaho Springs in 1897. So I have a lot of deep roots here. And it's a great little town. I grew up here. My dad was a game warden here in the 50s and 60s. So
that's why you got the insignias around the house here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I got to ride around with him and kind of learn a lot about the area and the animals and the stuff, and was kind of implanted in me. So unfortunately, my dad died of a heart attack when I was 11. So I got to hunt with my dad one time. He took me. And so I really wanted to be in the field all the time. But was one problem. I wanted to be a game warden, but I didn't want to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So being a recluse that I was, I went through school, and most of the time I was ditching and leaving and going out and trapping and hunting and whatever. So it's always been in my blood to do this. So I guess when I got in about my 20s, I really started hunting a lot, and I got into, you start with rifles, high-powered rifles, and then I got into like muzzle loading, and I had a brother that was kind of a mentor after my dad died, and he moved to Texas, and he'd come up every hunting season, and we go hunting with a bunch of other people from Idaho Springs, and it was a great life. Had a great time here, and got a lot of knowledge, and in between that kind of time, I started trapping, and I didn't know a thing about it, but I learned awful fast about catching animals and conservation and what they actually did. And so growing up, my nickname was, of course, like any kid in the school, my name was Trapper. So all my friends called me Trapper. But I did that.
Now that'd be a bad phrase. If you were called a trapper, be fighting words now.
Well, bring it on.
Yeah.
I was always a fireball.
Uh-huh.
But I was about 90 pounds soaking wet, and after I learned that 90 pounds soaking wet wasn't going to add up to somebody that was 6 foot and 170 pounds, I learned pretty quick.
Oh yeah.
I love sports. Got into playing fast pitch softball, and I did that, I guess, in my 20s till I got into my 30s, and kind of decided that it was time to give that up. And in between that time, I had picked up a bow, and I just started bow hunting. That was a turning point in my life, I think. I was so intense on it. I wanted to be a really good shot, and I wasn't. I wanted to be a really good hunter, and I wasn't as good as I thought I was. Although back in my younger days, trapping taught me
Oh yeah.
a lot about the movement of animals, and so I picked it up fairly fast. I had a friend tell me, "Hey, you know, first year I had an elk tag," he says, You'll kill your elk in about 7 years with a bow." I said, "No way. There ain't no way."
You'll starve to death.
So anyway, I set out. I'll tell you, after that first season, I missed so many elk and did so many stupid things that I thought, "Oh my gosh." Second year, I figured it out. I was out here one day shooting. I could shoot 100 yards with a compound, 70 yards, whatever. And went out that next season, started hunting with my compound, um, missed a couple of elk, and I came home and I thought, "What am I doing wrong?" And I figured out that I was more instinctive than I was anything. So I took all the sights off my bow. Went out that next week and killed an elk.
Hmm.
So I went through a period of hunting with the compound with no sights and did fairly well. I think I shot harvested a bighorn sheep. Um, I harvested an antelope. I harvested a mountain lion and an elk all in 1 year. And I thought, man, this is great.
With a bow, compound bow with no sights.
Exactly. So I thought, well, geez, man, all my buddies were turning to all these stick bow things and recurves, and I thought, oh, all right, well, what a stepping stone that was.
Mhm.
I mean, it was just it's like starting over again. But I figured it out and have kind of went through the changes of going from a compound to a traditional bow, and made my own arrows and wooden arrows, and really got into the traditional stuff. And there's a lot to it, broadheads and whatever, so had a pretty great run of doing all that.
So let me back up. You said that your family came here, homesteaded or resided in the 1890s. What were they doing?
My grandfather, he he delivered lumber, so they were really into he was really into, like the wagons and the horses,
Mhm.
and I grew up around horses too. So they were all into horses. My dad loved horses. So he did mostly that. Actually, I think he died. They found him over in Bear Creek delivering a load of lumber.
Oh, really?
He had a heart attack. Couldn't tell you how old he was, but I have a family picture in there. I'll show it to you.
Mhm.
But anyway, so then my dad got to be a game warden in the 50s, and
Which was the Wild West
yeah.
to some degree.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, even though the game agency, Game and Fish Department, which then became Division of Wildlife, it was formed in the 1880s, 1890s, with some sort of regulatory component to it. In the 1950s was a different landscape for hunters and anglers and ranchers and game wardens and law enforcement. Um, do you remember any of the time when your dad was alive as a game warden?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
and did that spark an interest on the law enforcement side and the management side, or was it just kind of your dad goes to work and this is what he does?
Well, no, it did. It sparked a big spark in me. I really wanted to be a game warden. I wanted to be in the law enforcement part of it. But like I told you, kind of at the very beginning,
School.
I didn't like school.
Mhm.
I mean, I liked the social part of it. Um, I liked, going and talking to people. Um, but as far as going to the school and learning all that stuff, um, yeah, it wasn't for me. So after after all that, when having a spark in me made me think about what I could do in the outdoors to be out here,
To make a living.
to make a living, and so I became an outfitter. It was kind of a little bit rough. I actually started with mountain lions, and the reason why I started with lions is because of the death of the Lancaster kid that got killed by the lion down here. And I thought, there probably needs to be some sort of a person here, an outfitter that is hunting lions. And so that's how I got started in the.
So
outfitting
give
business.
us what you can, a little bit of a background of that particular story on the Lancaster kid.
As far as what I know,
Yeah.
I guess Scott, he was a long distance runner, or just a runner, and he liked to run around. I mean, he ran all over the place, but he was out running in the evening time behind the high school back here, and was running along, and a lion attacked him and killed him. And so I know they had a big hunt on it. The local guys, which I knew, which I went to school with, most of these guys, the law enforcement guys. The chief, I don't know if he was the chief of police then, or I don't remember, but he ended up being the chief of police. Had saw the lion go up the other side of the hill. They spooked it off of the carcass, and he'd shot him with a, I don't know, 223 or something. But
And how long ago was that?
oh geez, had to be in the 90s. I'm gonna say somewhere around 93, 94, 95, somewhere in there.
Before you became an outfitter, obviously.
Yes.
Oh. And had you ever had much of an inclination before that particular instance to be an outfitter?
Um,
Or you still finding your way through adult life?
yeah. Yeah, so to speak. Trying to figure it all out. I did work for the city of Idaho Springs, for the Public Works Department, and learned how to operate equipment, and do all the water and the wastewater stuff, and that was I stayed there for quite a while, and they kind of let me do my outfitting in the fall and the winter. I'd build up time and have vacation, so I'd do a few then. That's kind of how I started. I started slow, and before you know it, I've gotten people calling me, "Well, you know this country really well. I'd like to I got a friend that's got a bighorn sheep tag." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I can help you out with that, because that's what I did. I watched, all the time, took pictures and whatever." So I'd went to the Forest Service and gradually built my permit up to what it is today. Being in the bighorn sheep and the mountain goats is all, it's really confusing, especially here. Like, our units are different than the county lines. The game managed units are different from the county lines. They're different from the Forest Service lines. They're different from all these different lines. So
Because they go off of drainages or ridges or
trails,
yeah,
or
whatever.
or highways or whatever, like 32 and 3 are divided by Interstate 70. So, our Clear Creek Ranger District was just here, and it had all these sheep units in it. But we'll just say goats. So it had like 5 goat units in it, but I could only outfit in that Clear Creek Ranger District.
No.
I didn't have a permit for Dillon, or I didn't have a permit for South Platte or South Park, or Sulphur, for that matter. So it took me a long time to convince these guys that, hey, I can't book a client and only hunt half a unit. So, would you take that in consideration? I'd like to.
Mm-hmm.
So I got him to do that. But the problem,
And just for clarity, not to interrupt, but for clarity, the client gets a tag for a unit.
yeah,
But that unit might be divided into different ranger districts or even different levels of management because you have to get your permit from the Forest Service or the Bureau of Land Management, depending on where that might be.
exactly.
Whereas Colorado Parks and Wildlife, or Division of Wildlife at the time, was issuing a license for a specific game management unit that might be land managed by multiple entities.
Exactly. So it was a real thing. I finally got them to understand, hey, I can't book a client when I can only hunt half that unit or a quarter of that unit. I can't do that. I can't do that to them because they've waited 20 years or 25 years or
Or whatever.
a long time to
back.
get this permit
Mhm.
because it's very limited and it's very, it's conservation. You don't want to, they have it limited so we're not over harvesting. So anyway, I got them convinced of that, and I started doing more specialty stuff like sheep and goat and black bear. I did some black bear over on the Uncompahgre. Had to go over there and get a permit, and
Post 1992, so it was only fall or pre 1992.
it's post.
Post 1992.
Yeah. So anyway, I had all that kind of figured out over there, and then they started saying, "Well, there's other outfitters over here that live here," and I said, "Oh, I understand." So I did a little bit of it here, but we don't have the habitat
For bears.
for bears. We don't have the acorns. We don't have that big draws of choke cherries and all that kind of stuff, which you need. But anyway, back to this story. I got into more of the specialty items, and then after a while, I got into when moose started getting popular. We got into the moose. So that's kind of how my outfitting evolved here, and now I'm here. This is my 30th year of outfitting.
The name of the business is what?
It is Turner Guide Services, Rocky Mountain Big Game Adventures.
Okay.
So
Okay. And did you ever have partners or anybody in business with you, or it's always been you?
no, sir, it's always been me, just me solo. I do have some guides. They've been with me for 20 years. We get along great, and we do a lot of things together. We're kind of all bow hunters, so we take trips around, like to Texas and whatever, hunting pigs in the winter when we're not busy, and
And we're sitting here in your collection room of things that you've harvested or things that have been important to you, but there's stuff from multiple places. I mean, you've been fortunate enough, it looks like, to be able to hunt in different places.
yeah, that's kind of interesting. So I like hunting too, but I like outfitting and guiding too because you're kind of doing the same thing. You're just not pulling the trigger, but it's all it's all hunting. It's all
Sometimes it might be babysitting and hunting.
well, that's true. Sometimes, yeah, that happens. But I was fortunate. I kind of tried to pick one a year for my personal goal. But I guess everybody's goal to say, I'd love to shoot the 29 species of North America. And that was always a dream of mine, and probably is a dream of a lot of hunters in the States or wherever. So I kind of picked at it a little bit. A lot of it came from Colorado and learning, but yeah, I've been fortunate to go a lot of places, Alaska and
You hunted New Zealand.
New Zealand. I've hunted in New Zealand. I've hunted in Newfoundland, Northwest Territory, British Columbia, just Ontario, a lot of the Canadian provinces. But
The majority of the people that you get that apply for licenses in your area, specifically in hopes to be able to go with you, what kind of people are they? Just a wide variety? Are they residents, non-residents? Are they more affluent or less affluent? Are they just working guys? I mean,
Well, it's pretty much a variety of people. You know, everybody kind of asked me, you know, you probably do more non-residents than residents, and that's not always true every year. I do a lot of residents, and I think the reason being is because these tags they're coveted tags, and there's not many of them. So these guys don't get to hunt this but once in a lifetime now. It's just totally that way.
Yeah.
Where, you know, back when I started, you might be able to draw a couple of those tags in a lifetime, but not now. It's just not possible. There's not that many tags.
How many guys do you typically get on a good lucky year for goat, moose, and sheep that you get a chance to guide?
Well, it varies, but it stays in a little window, mostly between 12 and 15 clients. That's a lot for us when you're talking about, you know, the elevation that they hunt at, because it's not easy for people. I mean, the people that I'm getting now, I mean, geez, like these people were in their 70s and 80s, and they're very limited on what they can do. So it's a job to get these hunters up to where we need to be.
Yeah, and you and I are both getting a little long in the tooth ourselves. So you start talking about guys in their 70s and 80s, and I'm like, well, we're not really that far off in the grand scheme of things.
No, we're not. No, we're not.
If you had your preference, do you try to get guys of any method of take, or would you prefer to have archery or muzzleloading or rifle hunters?
No, you know, it's all conservation. It's all hunters. We're good for anything, you know. We're willing to do whatever you can do. The only thing that I ask when I talk to these people, especially for these coveted tags, is be ready. Shoot your gun. Be in the best shape you can do. Be very efficient. And they always ask me, what caliber should I use? You shoot the best one.
Yeah, it doesn't
bring
matter
the best one that
as long as you can shoot it.
Yeah. You put her in the boiler room, we're good. Yeah, other than that, you know, you're looking for days. So
And the draw has happened on sheep and goat and moose so far here. And are you enthusiastic about the success of potential clients for what they've drawn and what you might be able to accumulate for hunters this fall?
yeah, you know, it's kind of funny. You know, you think about all this stuff, especially the coveted tags, and you get somebody and they go, it's really heartwarming to me, because they always say, hey, what should I put in for goats if they drew a sheep tag? What should I put in for moose if they draw a goat tag? So a lot of these guys are repeat customers, and which is awesome for me, because you wouldn't think that on the big realm of things.
Yeah.
But you know, it has worked. I guess we're doing a good job if they want to come back.
Oh yeah. And are you getting, do you get a fair amount of new Colorado residents or newer Colorado residents that had a non-resident perspective now that are looking from a resident perspective and wanting to come in, or is there a different ideology when you start looking at that crossover? Because non-residents that have become residents are part of the point creep issue when you look at resident participation. We haven't gotten a hell of a lot more licenses, but we have more residents.
Absolutely.
And so do you see a significant amount of those people coming in, or do they want to do a lot of that stuff on their own because now they're in Colorado?
No, I do see. I see some. On the flip side, I see more that were residents that are going to other states, but they're still putting in for Colorado, and they're still contacting me. So
they've actually moved out of state.
yes. Yes.
Has that increased significantly in the last 6 or 8 years?
Absolutely. I just, and it bothers me. It's troublesome to me because these guys were avid sportsmen. Their their uh, their means of fight with the way that the uh, the government here in Colorado is trying to change the directions of the North American, model. So, yeah, and we need fight. We need those people that are coming in that are new to get involved. We need everybody to get involved in this because it's becoming a serious thing for my way of life. Everybody's that's a hunter is a way of life.
Yeah. If you're a gun owner or a hunter, a sportsman as a whole, or an ag producer, a rancher, or farmer, they all have things that have been thrown at them specifically in the last 7 years and a little bit before that, but it's really ramped up since 2018. And as is evident with as many ballot initiatives or citizens petitions or pieces of legislation that we've had to deal with, do you think that any of those potential um, people that moved on to supposedly greener pastures, you think they're done with Colorado completely, or they'll continue to put in because they've got preference points and they still like to hunt it, but they just don't want to live with the politics?
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Some of these guys I've known for years, and I would have never thought that they would ever move from here, ever. But it's at an alarming rate here. To me, some of the people that I know.
And what's the age of these people?
Well, 50 plus.
Really?
Yeah, and I've lived here all my life. You know, would I think about moving if I couldn't hunt here? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love this country. I know it. You know, I'm not going to say better than anybody that I've known, but I'm pretty dang close. This is my heart here. So I'm going to give everything I can to not let this movement happen.
And you voiced a lot of, you spread a lot of word and messaging on behalf of what was happening on Proposition 127. But have you seen a change in hunter mentality over the course of the last 8 or 10 years about either the knowledge or the lack of knowledge or the ability to engage or to engage in how important it is to be able to sustain the fight? Um, have you seen a change in that, or have you seen it just kind of remain plateaued and status quo?
Well, I've seen it pick up. 127 was devastating. It would be devastating to me, which was how I started out fitting in the first place, as I mentioned before. Um, you know, I, I, I just think that we need everybody to be involved in this. All hunters, all even in no matter what you're hunting. If you're hunting rabbits or you're hunting pheasants, I did see a lot of people engage in that 127, which was great. But it seemed like and I'll be honest with you, and even myself, and probably you too. It was tiring.
Oh yeah.
We put a lot of work into this. Whether it be whatever we did, speaking or putting out signs or, meetings and whatever. But now's the time after we got a little breather here, we better start paying attention to this.
Yeah, because it's coming back.
It is coming back, and it's coming back in full force.
I made a statement at the Rocky Mountain Bowhunters Society banquet last year that when I was on the stage and commented on the fact that there was less moose, goat, and sheep hunters combined in the state of Colorado than there was the mountain lion hunters. and that's not an understatement. That's in totality, it's about half as many as there is mountain lion hunters. And people kept saying that the mountain lion hunters and the bobcat harvesters were the low-hanging fruit. And I'm like, not when you compare numbers, they're not.
No.
It's just that there's more people applying for moose, goat, and sheep, but there's less people participating. And what perspectives the antis have, the extremists have on things like that is, well, there's only a certain amount of people that do this, so we should get rid of it. And if you look at bow hunters are in that same bracket because there's less bow hunters than there is rifle hunters. Bird hunters are in the same bracket in totality because they utilize hounds or bird dogs, and there's less of those than there is other methods of take or other species to be able to pursue. From your business side of things and what you saw happen last year during 127, do you think there's significant room for improvement from the sportsman side, or do you think we just need to keep trudging uphill to make sure that we make a dent and enhance our position?
No. We need people. We need, it's kind of, you mentioned the bow hunter thing, and I don't know what the percentage is, but I saw it quite a while ago of the percentage of bow hunters that actually belong to the Colorado Bow Hunters Association is small. We need those people to join these organizations and get involved because we need that. We need their help, whether it be Rocky Mountain Bighorn Sheep Society, or Wild Sheep Foundation or Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. All these guys help being in these organizations and get involved with you guys for protection of our rights to hunt and own guns, because it's coming down the pipe and it's scary.
It's scary to the point to where even after 127, us looking at things in a foresightful manner of what's yet to come, because immediately after 127, we had multiple issues we had to deal with. And then we had the legislative session, which we had issues. And then we got post-legislative session. Then you got the commission season that's going on. Plus you have the next ballot season that's coming up with these same groups and entities that wanted to change what they wanted to change last time that they lost. They were unsuccessful. Now they're starting back up and they're reinvigorating their followers and trying to talk about fundraising and strategy and policies and so forth. Trying to keep our side. You mentioned something. This is tiring. It's tiring when you're doing it, but it even becomes more tiring when there's not something that is of significant urgency.
Yes.
That you don't have a date. You don't have a culmination of a date. Of the deadline is November 5th. The election is November 5th. People on our side have a tendency to procrastinate, and often they're the most patient individuals in the world because they'll continue to apply for a license for 20 and 30 years. But they get burned out when you continually talk about something that's going to happen 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 or 18 months from now.
Right.
Because the inevitable is there. Well, inevitably, you're likely to draw a tag, but you'll continually put in and put in and put in. And you might even put into multiple states hoping that one tag will come in before another tag. I'm trying to figure out a way that when outfitters and hunting guides and industry leaders that have businesses and gun stores or whatever, how do we get this entire community to see the sense of urgency and the change that an outfitter like you or a trapper or a wildlife control operator like me has seen just in the population makeup and the societal changes? That how do we get them to understand how important all of this is to make sure that we cross-pollinate and we have that spider web I often talk about? Yeah, that's a silver bullet, isn't it?
Yeah. What do you want me to say?
Yeah.
There's lots of stuff that the hunters, the gun owners, everything can, that everybody can do. I don't know how to beg, plead, borrow, try to get them to get involved, but there's all kinds of stuff that you can do. You can get on the internet from the CPW and find out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
At least do that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that will, more information will spark them and saying, well, whoa, wait a minute. They're trying to do what? I don't think a lot of people really realize how in depth that this movement is and what they're trying to do to us.
Last year, as the campaign was building up in August, September, and October, you had hunters in the field during that time frame prior to the election of November 5th. When you had your hunters come in, was that ever a topic of discussion, or did they even know what was going on for the most part?
No.
They had no idea.
No. But I made sure I brought it up.
So
I mean,
so you're sitting there glassing for stuff and say, hey, how do you vote?
Have you heard?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, not all of them, but some of them, it's, it is an ongoing battle. And
Did that surprise you that they didn't know?
Yes.
And there were resident and non-resident hunters alike.
Yes.
And still didn't know.
Right.
Not all of them, but some of them still didn't know.
Right.
Were they surprised when you told them?
Yeah. I think they were really surprised.
See, and that would almost piss me off.
Yeah.
That the people that I'm working hard for don't really realize just, and I say that tongue in cheek because I was irritated through the entire campaign of people that I've known, people that I've worked for, people that I've trapped on, people that I supplied service to, people I've interacted with, and they're like, "Well, I haven't seen you around for so long. What have you been doing?" And it's like, obviously you've not paid attention to very much that's going on.
Right.
Well, I don't watch the news, and I'm not on social media, and I don't do meetings, and I have no clue, and it doesn't really matter because it's not going to affect me. And then when I would tell them, they're like, "Well, what the hell do we got to do? Who's doing what?" And I can only imagine being in hunting camps for 2 or 2.5 months before the election last year for guys that were really bought into what we were doing and what was needed to be done to find people that you were getting paid from that had no clue that all of that stuff could be in jeopardy.
Yeah. And it could go away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand it. I don't know how to provoke people of getting them to do that other than talking to people, just, and everybody.
Which then it seems like you're on your soapbox.
Yeah.
You're on the podium.
Yeah.
And you're talking about, and I say this many, many times on different podcasts, including ours, that the average person treats hunting as a release, as a time away from reality, and to think about having to fight for it and having to do all the work to be able to do what they do, that just doesn't seem like that's part of the game plan, and they'll just keep milking it for what. That's the average guy.
Absolutely.
That's the
What a
frustrating
statement
part.
that is. That's the truth.
Yeah. Then it's always going to be here, and if it's going to come and attack us, well, somebody else is going to take care of it for us.
Exactly.
But then a lot of times, as you've seen happen around the country on different species, method of take, seasons, states, whatever, people often look back and go, how did we let that happen?
Yeah.
Just like what we had to deal with in bears in 1992, where everybody said that's not going to pass, and it passed by 69-31. Where they said trapping, well, they're not going to take trapping, and we lost that 52-48.
Yeah.
Wolves aren't going to come in, and we lost that 51.9-49.1. And that's why everybody had the defeatist attitude of what we were doing on 127 and Ordinance 308 in Denver, because they had lost so many other things.
Right.
But in hindsight, they didn't really participate in any of those other things over the previous 30 years either.
Exactly.
So what's, from a Mark Turner perspective, if this sort of mentality continues to go down the road about threatening to take away your tradition and your heritage and your lifestyle and the livelihood of being able to produce for your own family, it affects your bottom line because, as I mentioned, you getting older in the tooth, longer in the tooth, just like I am. If they start doing that, you don't even have a business to sell.
No.
You have no valuable asset on 20 or 30 years of building something up because they've degraded and eroded the management perspectives and objectives of an agency that's been undermined and agenda-driven by higher-ups in the political administration.
Absolutely.
But then it gets into your recreational side, your avocational side.
My life.
Everything.
livelihood, you know, it's everything.
How much do you depend on game to feed your family?
Well, we don't buy any meat. I mean, yeah, I mean, we're consuming everything that we get, whether it be elk, deer, lions, moose, whatever. It's all consumed. It's all that, and we depend on that every year. Now it's getting harder and harder for us to get those tags because there's more people and, you know, limited stuff. Like this area here is all limited for elk and deer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's every
you put in, your wife puts in, and hopefully you got enough to be able to fill the freezer.
and then we're smart enough to do it with a bow.
So many times Sean's heard me say this. You know, I picked up a bow as a kid. I wanted to go buy one, and my grandpa said the Indians were smart enough to give it up. You're dumb enough to take it up, and I just never started shooting the bow. And I just recently picked one up from one of our fundraisers that we were doing, and John Vernetti, who had Royal Gorge Archery and Anglers archery shop down in Canyon City. I won the bow, and he's gotten me into shooting the thing, but I'm like, until you build a level of confidence up, I'll shoot targets and I'll play a little bit, but if I'm drawing one of the tags that are coveted,
Yeah.
I'm not taking the chance on me going out there, and I'll take a chance on not harvesting something with a rifle,
Yeah.
but depending on me to be able to turn around and see with progressive bifocal glasses and look down a sight on the back of an arrow to figure out if I can hit something at 45 yards. I'll depend on the rifle temporarily until I get to that point. But
I understand.
But going back to the landscape and the political side, have you seen a different management perspective from when it was Colorado Division of Wildlife to Colorado Parks and Wildlife to where it's at now, still under Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and you have continued concerns on the continuation of being able to do what you do for as long as you want to do it?
I do. You know, I was brought up in the Colorado Division of Wildlife. I believe they were called Wildlife and Parks. Maybe at the very beginning. There's a reason why they dropped the parks off of that. When they started doing the Colorado Division of Wildlife, there was much more funding, much more. There's more money for studies. There's more money for whatever they want to do. Once they put that parks back into here, I mean, those guys drained us of all our money, of all the parks.
Well, and a lot of that comes from, and while the money can't be commingled, it comes from the disbursement of resources to be able to turn around. I mean, the ideology under Governor Hickenlooper was to put them underneath the one roof and use the same logo and same fleets and the whole 9 yards, which then I think when you still have the same amount of people in two different deals and now they're blended into one, at least on the administration side, it creates confusion and I believe errors and omissions as long as I've been playing around this. Not saying that the park side has been completely detrimental to the wildlife side. I think the management structure and the administrative ideologies have been completely different and structured. When you have an area wildlife manager who now has duties underneath of his belt because there's state parks in his area, or a regional manager or a deputy regional manager, it used to be strictly wildlife and strictly parks. Now they've split those task at hand, those duties, and maybe that wasn't in the best interest of wildlife. Now, somebody on the park side will look at it and go, well, this has been great.
Yeah.
But there's still people on the park side that think that wildlife is getting the better end of the deal. And So I think that when you have those two separate mentalities, and you are dealing with living, breathing things that have a typical lifespan of 5 to 8 years, and your big game season structures go 5 to 10 years now, and you have ideologies on parks, as is this current governor has, more parks, more parks, more parks, and less on the wildlife side. I think that that is a detriment that needs to be recovered as soon as possible, getting into this next gubernatorial administration, starting in 2026, 2027.
Absolutely.
You've got a good relationship with your local district wildlife managers and area wildlife managers.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Do you believe, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, correct me if I'm wrong, do you believe that they are sometimes handcuffed on what would be best for sportsmen and women and the wildlife resources?
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
You know, they're good people. They're wildlife managers. You know, that's what they went to school for.
Mhm.
That's what I wanted to go to school for. Yeah, I do. I think they're handcuffed. I think they got the duct tape. You know,
Mhm.
I I think they do the best they can.
How many game wardens have you seen come and go in your particular area that you deal with? A couple or a bunch?
In 30 years?
Yeah.
Whew. Quite a few. At least a half a dozen, just off
Mhm.
the top of my head. So,
And not to put words in their mouths, but things have not been a bed of roses from the wildlife side. They've had to become more people managers than what they originally intended on, because of the change of society or the change of ideologies. But at the same time, the questions that I see from my interaction with the agency staff, is not as solid as it once was. And I've seen game wardens, and I think you would concur, seeing game wardens pack up and want to go do something else, retire maybe before their time was up, um, look at different um, professional positions. And it used to be, you're seeing the change in the last 7 to 8 years is more game wardens that you see that are hired now are looking for a job. They're not looking for a career because it's not part of their lifestyle. Not necessarily in your area. Maybe that is, and maybe it isn't. But those are things that don't help manage wildlife sustainably in perpetuity. When you have people in a job as opposed to people in a career or a lifestyle.
absolutely.
And so, has there been any change in ideologies of what game wardens in your area deal with outfitters?
Um, well, there has been changes, a few years back, but, for the past few years, I mean, there's stuff that's changing so fast around here, not I mean, some of it's for the good, some of it's for the bad. I mean, a lot of this stuff, there's so many people here
Mhm.
and so many, I mean, we got a lot of 14ers here in this county.
Yeah, because you're right at the base of what, Mount Blue Sky. I mean,
Is that what they call that?
well, something. I saw the sign up here on the highway. I didn't remember what the hell it was. It was, everything is still Mount Evans and Mount Elbert to me. So,
Well, exactly. Um, yeah, I mean, so we got so many people hiking and that's all good, but it is so it's getting so it's overcrowded.
mhm.
Um,
Well, I saw a sign down here, Mark, that you need reservations to be able to go up the road now.
oh yeah,
And the road's still closed because of the road conditions of snow.
right.
But when it opens up, you need reservations to be able to go up. I remember that sometimes it was crowded and sometimes it wasn't, but you didn't need reservations for anything in the state of Colorado. Now
No,
you have to have reservations for a parking area to be able to park to go hike somewhere.
yeah.
Do you have to do that on the outfitter side?
Well, as of last year, no. Well, not last year, the year before last, because last year it was closed. Um, so I don't know what I know they're changing some things, and I have no idea what they're gonna do. But I heard there's a lot of changes coming down the pipe.
From the Forest Service.
Yes. And 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 the thing kinda that aggravates me as far as, like, we'll just use Guanella Pass for an example. Um, it used to be where you could, you have so many feet to be off the road before you can actually shoot at an animal,
Mhm.
blah, blah, blah.
It was like 50 foot from the center line
Yeah.
or something before.
So that's a county road. Um, so they decided that because of that, the influx of people being up there, um, being campers, there's a campground there that's kinda at the 3/4 of the way up. I don't remember what they call that, but, and then you got the bouldering people. Have you heard about the bouldering people?
No.
Well,
Is it like a cult?
they have a they have a pad that's probably, 3 foot wide, 3 foot 3 foot tall, and it folds and you backpack it. And they go up to these giant boulders, and they set the pads down below in case they fall. So they try to climb up these boulders. It's everywhere here
For what? To say they
for
did?
a while.
For a while.
I don't know. But it's everywhere. I mean, places where we're hunting moose, we're hunting goats, we're hunting sheep.
You got bouldering people.
We got bordering people. Then you got the hikers and the backpackers, which is all great. I mean, it's all outdoorsy stuff. But it's gotten so bad that, like, Guanella Pass backing to that, the bouldering people were there, the campers are there, so they decided, "Hey, this looks like a disaster." So, instead of limiting them, they're limiting us. So now you have to be a quarter of a mile off that highway before you can hunt.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So, and that's this side of Guanella Pass. Last year, we were over on the other. We're going up Geneva Park, and they've got all these new spaces that you gotta reserve a spot for camping. No shooting within a quarter of a mile. I mean, we're losing so much.
So the areas that
Every
you're talking about where somebody could draw that you have to have a permit in doesn't necessarily anymore cover the entire area of the game management unit, because if the road goes through there and you got a quarter-mile buffer, or you got a quarter-mile buffer around a campground, and then you have multiple campgrounds in different areas and multiple buffers along whatever roadway, there's a tremendous amount of roadway that is accessible, or area that's accessible that is not accessible for hunting.
Exactly.
And only because of the public interaction or the influx of the general public of what you have.
Yes.
Are those areas typically good enough to be able to hunt? I mean, a quarter mile to the average person doesn't seem like that much, but a quarter mile on some of these mountain roads where you've got a quarter mile down in the trees or quarter mile up in the rocks or wherever it might be, that's a long distance. That's longer than what you could typically shoot. But
Yes.
if you can't shoot within that quarter mile area, and it happens for 6 miles or 8 miles or whatever the hell it might be, that's a lot of country that you have no access to.
Absolutely. I mean, it seems like every year we lose something. I mean, it's just like little chips, boing, 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 and to an outfitter, um, we're not necessarily hunting in a lot of that area. It's just aggravating to see it's a loss. Somebody can be. Have they ever packed a moose out?
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, you know,
Huh?
and is there lots of habitat for moose and goats and sheep
Mhm.
that we've lost.
Within that quarter mile buffer.
Absolutely.
So, have you seen a change in the public mindset of your interaction with the public in the field?
Um, I don't have a lot of trouble. I mean, we're smart about it. I mean, we don't poke the bear, so to speak. We try to be considerate and, a lot of times we're walking out in the middle of the day and we pass 50 hikers sometimes. We've already been there and back, but they're going, "Well, what are you doing?" And, "Well, it's hunting season." "It is?
Mhm.
Should we wear our orange?" I go, "Well, if I'm mistaking you for a goat, I got a problem." It's like,
We don't have to wear orange, why would you?
yeah, exactly. So, you know, um, I haven't had anybody really blow up at me, in the 30 years that I've been, because I've been responsible. We'll just put it that way.
Because you hear horror stories of
Oh, yeah.
people on horseback or people in sheep camp or whatever run into people that are not just uneducated, but that are really anti-hunting,
Mhm.
and, and because of the interaction that you're having in these public areas, it's curious to me if they're just tolerant or they're uneducated, they don't really give a damn one way or the other, um, but if you're not having that, that's at least a level of optimism there.
I personally think they're not educated.
Mhm.
Most of the people, I mean, when I grew up, there wasn't any houses over here, you know, anywhere. Well, half the county,
Mhm.
places we used to hunt. We can't hunt anymore. It's all mining claims. This is a mining town. So
Mhm.
there's mining claims everywhere. And a lot of them, you didn't pay your taxes. It goes back to the government and blah, blah, blah. So, um, yeah. So, we're constantly losing places to go.
Has the national forest access as a whole been shut off significantly, um, in areas that you would like to pursue?
A few. There's a few places like that. Not a lot here in this they don't maintain their roads, very well,
Or their trails?
or their trails, or anything like that. Usually it's an outfitter or somebody has to go clear the timbers or whatever, but, some of them and I realize they say they don't have any money, and I don't know how not. We pay a lot of taxes, so.
Mhm. How about, give me one of the most memorable. I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. One of the most memorable personal hunting experiences that you've had for your pursuit of game. You got a plethora of different collection animals in here. One of the most memorable experiences that you've had.
The next one I go on.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Hey, they're all memorable. I mean, there's I mean, I could tell you a story, every one of these that I've taken. It just doesn't go away. It's just a handbag of memories. I mean, lots of them, like my bighorn sheep, shooting at with my longbow, and that was pretty memorable. Had a lot of pressure on me, because I was an outfitter then, and, it was expected. And it made it a little more challenging, I guess, because of the pressure on it.
Mhm.
I still had fun. I got it in my head. I was pretty fired up the first couple of mornings, and, I had actually picked this sheep out before the season.
And that's the life-size one down here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and, I think a day or 2 before the season, he disappeared on me, and I could not find him, and, so I had seen some other ones that were honorable to me to go after, and, I think there was 25 rams in one group, and I had walked up this hillside in the middle of the night and got up there in position because 'cause I'd watch them and know what their movements are and blah, 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 and I had those rams go by me all except for the big one, all of them, and some of them were 10 yards, I could have shot, you know, and it's like, ugh, ugh. So I came off of there and I just was doing some glassing and found a couple other ones, and one was a monster, and so I got I got up on a hill and they were coming up this slide chute, and I got up above them and got a head net on, and I'm all camoed out, and here they come up this chute, and I'm I go, oh crap, and I got down and it's really loose. It's like sliding, and so I'm trying to be quiet, and so they're coming up. I got down, I got ready, nothing, nothing. I go, what the hell? And I peek up, and they laid down about 20 yards down below me. I went, oh, and they're all looking down the hill. You know, they don't have a clue. And I thought, oh, so I raised up and I got on my feet, real quiet, got my bow in position, and the one I want to shoot's closest, and they're laying like this, and they're all down there, and they're looking downhill. And I got this boulder, and it's like covering up most of the kill zone on this first sheep. And I thought, I'm shooting pretty good now. I can make that.
You're confident in yourself.
Oh, yeah. So I got all drawed back, and I went, okay, right over the top of that rock, and whew, arrow goes, and it hits the top of this, just skims the top of that rock with the fletching. Almost hits the other sheep down below it. Anyway, they blew up and ran off, and I didn't get those. 2 days later,
You weren't as good as you thought you were.
I wasn't as good as I thought I was. But anyway, so that was one, and 2 days later, I got into another bunch, and I got 10, 15 yards from these sheep, and it just wasn't what I was looking for, and then I went back and I found him. And long story short, I skinnied up this mountain and watched him and a little ram bed down, and by myself, took off, went down this hillside, up this other hillside, got above him, went over, and I remember thinking to myself, there's a little pine tree on top of this cliff, and they're right there. They're right underneath that cliff. So I get 100 yards from them, take my shoes off, sneak up there like a good Indian, get over to this little pine tree. I'm looking around, nothing. Oh, dang it, man. I back out, go around, look over here, look over there. No, it's where that pine tree is. I'm back over there, and this is all taken, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever. And I get over there to that pine tree again, and I'm standing on this ledge, going, they must have got up and moved off when I was traveling. And I just remember my foot just squished this little rock. And these two sheep come out from underneath my feet. I was standing on top of them, and they were bedded underneath this little shelf. And where they went, there's a trail in it, and there was a big rock bluff here, and they went around that trail, and I ran and went on top of that. And when they came around the other side, they stopped and they looked and got a shot and harvested my ram. That was pretty memorable.
How far was that?
25 yards
Really?
away. Yeah.
Curiosity kills the cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang it, man.
And how far back were you?
Oh, it wasn't too far back. I'd say a mile or a mile and a half. Not a long ways. But
Sheep country, that's still a pretty good jaunt.
exactly. There you go.
That quarter mile away from the road could be a pretty good jaunt.
Yeah.
Depending on where you're at.
Yeah. Elevation change could be quite a bit.
Yeah. So how big was that ram?
It is 168 and some eighths.
Good sheep, good heavy sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tight curl. We don't have the real drop down longhorns, ours are like, I mean, some of those you could fit a watermelon.
Oh yeah.
Ours you can fit a softball in, so that takes a lot, but
They're still cool sheep.
both those sheep that I've harvested are 10 years old. We try to do that in our outfitting service, although it's kind of hard to tell somebody, no, you can't shoot that sheep. It's only 8, and hey, you're crazy. I'm shooting that sheep.
And for people that don't know, what do you don't ask the sheep how old he is. You don't have enough. How do you tell?
I count the candles on their cake.
Yeah.
No, they have growth rings on their horns.
Just like a tree.
Just like a tree. And for every year they grow a growth ring, grow a little bit. So it's kind of interesting to see. You can look at that animal and kind of tell what kind of life he's had. There may have been a drought year or something, and the growth rings are 3 or 4 inches apart or whatever, and then you'll find one of these that's an inch apart, and he'll had a hard time in that period. So,
and that could be weather, or it could be ailments or whatever else that
absolutely, he might have got an injury, might have like that sheep over there had been on the wall. The first one I shot with a compound, he had a scar down his neck. He had been shot.
Oh, really?
And he's 10 years old too, but he's only 3/4 curl.
Yeah.
He's broomed off, but all his growth rings are short.
So he didn't have a good of a life, probably because of the shot.
Yeah.
I drew a sheep tag back in 2000, and then another one in 2022. I harvested a good ram in 2000, and we hunted the Sangre de Cristos in 2022. And the only ram that we found that was within reasonable distance is something we saw from 5 miles. And when next time we saw him, he was about 100 yards from us. We didn't see him in that span.
Right.
And we crept over the top, and he was with 3 other rams, little rams. And he was a mediocre 3/4, but he had an ear tag, a collar. He was blind in one eye, and there was no hair on his neck. And I'd looked at my son in the spotting scope there, and I said, I'm not going to shoot him. And he goes, of course you're not, But to your point, the rings on him were very close together for a long time.
Yes.
And so he was an old sheep, but I thought he'd been touched and fondled and manipulated enough by people over the course of time. That was something I just didn't want to turn around and harvest. And I don't have second thoughts about that. If you want to support a company that supported the efforts to defeat Proposition 127, then you need to support Davis Tent. Davis Tent has provided quality canvas goods for outdoorsmen for the last 50-plus years. For more information, go to davistent.com. If you want to support another business that was instrumental in helping us defeat Proposition 127, check out Salida Gun Shop. Salida Gun Shop in Salida, Colorado provides quality products, expertise, and knowledge from individuals that actually do what they sell. Go to salidagunshop.com. Listen to the advice of Cameron Haynes and support companies that are supporting your cause and your efforts. Minturn Anglers is one of those companies. Minturn Anglers provides product and fishing excursions in Colorado and are second to none. For more information, go to minturnanglers.com. Do you have a bunch of sheep in your areas that are collared?
We used to. 32 had several that were collared. I think they're all gone now. But according to the warden here, they were planning on this side of the hill, which would be S3, is putting 20 collars on. So I know they got a few last year, but I think there was some trouble with getting a helicopter or something, and there was too much snow to do it by foot. But they're planning on doing some more collars here. This part of our sheep stuff in 3 has done very well, where when I was growing up, it had got diseased and they almost all died out. So sheep are so touchy, they're so finicky, and they get diseased off of
and the closer they get to human activity with goats and domestic sheep and so forth, domestic goats and sheep, and they've got a lot of things that are being dealt to them just by people being around without hunting,
right?
Without predators, just because they're so susceptible to do so many different things.
Exactly.
Do you have more sheep now than what you did When you started your outfitting business?
In 3, yes.
Yeah,
In 32, no.
really.
Flip-flopped.
Uh-huh. Which is better habitat?
Well, I'd say 32 is, but they seem to be doing very well here. And one of the reasons might be is, conservation-wise, we used to have a lot of goats on Mount Evans,
Mhm.
Mount Blue Sky, whatever you wanna call it. I'll call it Mount Evans. Um, a few years back, I mean, we used to have 3 seasons on goats, and we used to have, like, 5 to 7 tags in each season. Now we have 2 with about 3 or 4 tags in it. The goat population went down, and I seen them get diseased, and I don't know if they really figured out what it was.
On the goats?
Yes. But since that goat populations went down, the sheep populations came up. I do know that. They say the goats aren't, a native species of Colorado. Um, some of my bow hunting friends that have been in this for a long, long time, you probably know Marv Klinke and
Oh, yeah.
and that, they've actually had read books and have books that stated that the early days there was white goats here. So I don't know if there was or not.
If you see any of the old petroglyphs that you can come across on the western slope, well, they had something that looked like goats in some of those,
Right.
and they had the ones that looked like sheep. Of course, they had other ones that looked like dinosaurs too. So I don't know if they were all here at the same time.
Right.
But it makes me wonder if they weren't, because there's no color to them; they're just stick figures. But if they were actually assimilating antelope or mountain goats,
Right.
and some are pretty definitively antelope the farther south that you get. But I always wondered when they said that sheep weren't native to Colorado, in what time were they not native?
Right.
We had, if you look at the wolf side of things, that is more in people time. Grizzly bears is a little bit farther back in people time. Mountain goats, I have no idea, but I know that the areas that I've been able to hunt for myself or to guide in, where you had many sheep or many goats, neither one lasted very long
Right.
with each other.
Right.
And I think that that's one thing that most people don't understand, that aren't sportsmen and women, that aren't goat pursuers or sheep pursuers, that they don't do all that well together. They can coexist to some degree, but they're not as good together as what other animals are.
Right. I agree with you. Yep. So it's been fluctuating, in 30 years. I'm sure it's going to fluctuate. So
How many tags are available in your units now
for
each one?
sheep and goats,
Yeah.
oh, I'd have to look. I think there's either 3 or 4 goat tags per season, and there's 2 seasons. There's non-resident in there or 2. Sheep tags for 3. I think there's 4 and they have 2 seasons. So, 8. And then in 32, last year, they had 10 archery tags and 10 rifle tags, and they cut it in half.
To this year?
Yeah. So this year we're going to have a total of 10 tags instead of 20. Everybody harvested last year in 32 except for one guy. And I think they finally seen, I've seen it going down for 7, 8 years, and they're having a lot of problems with the lamb survival.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just dying out. I mean, you'll see probably, I don't know, a group of ewes and stuff. You'll see 6, 8 lambs, in August, and September and October go along, and then you'd see 3, and it's just like maybe 1 survives or none.
Do you got moose in those areas? Or you hunt moose somewhere else?
No, we have moose in those areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, to some degree. A lot of our stuff is though, over in the Fraser Valley and that part of the state. Sulfur unit.
When did you start guiding for moose?
2010 or 11.
And that's a success story
Yes.
statewide.
Yeah.
For now.
For now.
What's the biggest, in your opinion, from an outfitter's perspective, what's the biggest threat to the growing moose population in the future?
The wolves. Yeah, I mean, look at what they've done in Wyoming, and look at the northern states. I mean, it's pathetic. Talk to them. Find out, do some research on it. It's a bad deal. We really didn't need those here. I think we already had some here, but to dump some more in here is I'm just totally. I'm not anti-wolf, but I'm anti-wolf in Colorado. Bottom line, I'll be honest with you.
And I think so many people that I've talked to that because we had to deal with 127, so many people that voted for wolf introduction on Prop 114 then had a change of heart and voted against 127 because they found out over a 4-year period that maybe ballot box biology wasn't the best way to turn around and have interactions with wildlife. We should leave it up to the experts. I know dozens and dozens, and if not hundreds of people that changed their vote from, yeah, I'd like to see wolves, to, no, I don't want you to harvest. I don't mind you harvesting mountain lions. Let's keep that management. But then those same people now have started to have a different perspective on wolves because wolves are in the news every single week. Mountain lions could be in the news too, because we have more mountain lions on the landscape. We have more mountain lion encounters, and there's a mountain lion app that you could turn around and see what sort of interactions there are. The wolf management has not gone according to plan at this point in time.
No.
From a variety of different perspectives. None the least of look at what the ranchers and the ag producers in Winter Park and Granby and Grand Lake area, or over in Moffat County, or down in Rio Blanco County, and now in Pitkin County, what they've had to deal with. 20 years from now, based upon what's happened in Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana, we might not have a flourishing, prosperous moose population. Do you think that the way things are going, that it'll be 20 years?
No, I don't. I think you're going to see it start declining, immediately. Especially if you can't slow them people down with the bringing more in. I mean, it's just, think about how many pups they have and the devastation they do to.
Yeah, they've got 4 denning sites already that they haven't seen pups out this year, so they say, but they've got 4 denning sites. If we had 25 or 27 on the ground, depending on what died for a variety of different reasons, and you had 4 sites and each of them had 4 pups that survived, okay, well, now you're up to 40. And then the next year you turn around and do something, now you're up to 80. And it might not seem like that big of a deal to a state like Wyoming or Montana that's got, 1,200 or 1,500, or Idaho or whatever. But in a state that has 6 million people with 84 million visitors, and the most flourishing moose population in North America, and the largest elk population in North America, yeah, we've got a food source, but you got a food source for overweight people at Country Buffet too. That doesn't mean it's the right thing to turn around and keep giving them.
Right.
From a business perspective, what do you see is the biggest challenge that you have to deal with for the next 5 years of just being able to maintain a reasonable opportunity for your client and the opportunity for you to continue to maintain your lifestyle and your business structure Because it's happening on the ag side too. From an outfitter perspective, what is your biggest concern for the next 5 years?
Well, the the bills they're being brought up, and it's all a big combination of everything from the wolf thing to the anti-gun movement to it's all a big package. And like we stated here earlier, we need to pay attention to what's going on, because in that fast it'll change. It could destroy businesses and the ag and everything else. We need to pay attention.
Mhm.
I mean, it's all one package. Look at the whole big picture.
Everything.
Look what they're trying to do. Look at the gun control. Why are they doing that? What do you what why do you think that they're having all this gun stuff?
Oh, I think, and I appreciate the question.
Yeah.
But I think the 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 topic of the day is to capture as much enthusiasm as what they possibly can on instances that will have nothing to do with actual gun control, but to move their needle and their agenda, just like Senate Bill 003, um, imposing that on an agency that is Parks and Wildlife, not alcohol, tobacco, and firearms.
Right. Where it's
Imposing
supposed to
that
be.
on them and creating this process of people to be able to acquire firearms supposedly legally, even though we have a federal alcohol, tobaccos, and firearms in a federal registry, in the sense to where people have to have a background check and they have to fill out a form. They have to go to a federal firearms dealer. Now there's going to be an oversight committee or an agency, an entity within CPW that's going to help facilitate that. I think, for one, that's ludicrous. For two, I think that the the state government officials, the elected individuals, are overstepping their bounds. And I think that they're also attempting to do that at multiple levels. Not all of them yet, but attempting to do that on wildlife and agriculture issues, and on mining and oil and gas issues, and on renewable energy issues, not to mention the social side of things if you want to get into all the other components that are there. We're just talking about wildlife and natural resources right now.
Yeah.
But I think it goes back to one of the key statements that we made earlier about the lowest hanging fruit. 2,500 mountain lion hunters, 1,100 bighorn sheep, mountain goat, and moose hunters. Uh, the minority doesn't have a chance in hell to turn around and go against the majority, even though the minority is right when it's providing a service or providing an opportunity or providing a management or providing the funding. And it's a select few individuals that consider themselves to be in the majority to make the decisions on what the minority is. And I think that that's where sportsmen and women and the ag community as a whole, the gun community as a whole, need to figure out a way to get off their asses and band together and say, look, we might have differences of opinions, but if you don't think that we're not on the same team, then you're mistaken, you're misguided, you're misinformed, you're uneducated. Because we are not each other's enemies. And as we said through Proposition 127, the enemy is not in our circle. And we need to make sure that the actual enemy, the adversary, doesn't infiltrate our circle to make us think that we're each other's enemies. And I think that the ultimate goal with the gun side of it is to, and I'm going on a tirade here, I'm on my pulpit, is to demean and degrade and erode the ability for people to own a tool that is also used in hunting. And it has degraded the opportunity for hunting significantly, in a magnificent fashion, by allowing Colorado Parks and Wildlife to be the scapegoat of gun legislation or registration or acquisition and possession in the state of Colorado. And I think that allowing them to be the scapegoat then turns a larger amount of the population against them on something that has nothing to do with their mission. And their mission is to provide parks access and management, and wildlife and habitat and conservation access and management, and gun registration and facilitation and acquisition does not fall into that mission. And I think that, you guys are regulated by the Department of Regulatory Agencies, but then you have to get a permit from the forest and the BLM. But you have to have the credibility to be able to work within different state land side of things. And maybe that's state land board, maybe it's through Colorado Parks and Wildlife through different permits, whether what side of the outfitting business one is on, whether river permits or fishing permits or whatever. I think that all of this in totality plays into the overreach of government to be able to do what some individuals believe is necessary for the benefit of all, when it's really a single minority that's actually going to benefit off of it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well said.
I think that, guys like you that have been in business 30 some odd years,
30 years,
are becoming less and less of the norm and more of an anomaly. I see that people that I associate with on a regular basis in the fight are becoming less and less of the norm and more of an anomaly. I'm seeing the career-minded game warden less and less of the norm and more of an anomaly. I think that that's a travesty in itself when you start combining all those efforts together and you get other people that want to talk about recreation and they want to talk about equity and diversity and inclusivity and access and all the stuff that goes into, which doesn't have a damn thing to do with that mule deer or that whitetail deer or that mountain lion. Nothing. It doesn't have a damn thing to do with habitat management or modifications or accessibility. And I think those things have gotten into wildlife in a confusing manner to where the general public, the average general public, the non-hunting general public, starts to see that cloudy water that they don't fully understand and comprehend the need of the North American model of wildlife conservation and responsible wildlife management. They don't understand it. They don't acknowledge it. And that's why it's upon us to be able to turn around and continue to do that. Outfitters are a first interaction that a lot of people can have with that sort of lifestyle. Me as a wildlife control operator, I'm a lot of the times, our company is a lot of the times, the first interaction that somebody has with somebody dealing with wildlife. People find that hard to believe, but somebody in downtown Denver or downtown Colorado Springs, or they just moved from Ohio that came to Fremont County or to the middle part of the state in the summer or winter home, that's their first interaction with somebody like us. I don't want them to have the first interaction with somebody who's never dealt with that opportunity to have that interaction.
Right.
And I think that that's where politicians, managers, administrators need to be more educated and more reasonable and logically thinking when it comes to all of the stuff that we're talking about.
Oh, exactly. Very well said. Yeah, it's something you brought up, at the very beginning of that is we need to band together because we're powerful. We got the power. We got the people. We just all need to be together.
And powerful doesn't mean you have to bully.
No.
It doesn't mean you have to push it means you need to have an educated base to provide the facts.
Exactly.
And I use that because the reason somebody hires Mark Turner as a hunting guide, it's not because they know so much themselves. It's because they're looking for your level of expertise,
right,
and your boots on the ground experience and your anecdotal knowledge and to learn off of you. Like you said before, if they've applied for 20 or 25 or 30 years for something, well, they might have done a little bit of research, but in that 20 or 25 or 30 years, look how much boots on the ground research that you've done that they're capitalized off of, and they're paying you for your knowledge, not just for the opportunity for that 5 or 7 or 10-day experience. They're paying you for 30 years of knowledge.
right,
And not just where to go, but how to do it. And if this isn't successful, how do you do that? I wish that politicians had outfitters to go with in the political landscape to be able to turn around and walk them through that, because there's a hell of a learning curve on somebody that's got a 2-year term and it takes them 18 months to get their feet underneath their ass.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to go with an outfitter after a 30-year wait that had 18 months under his belt.
Right.
I want the guy who's got the most value and the most experience, and that's somebody like what you do.
Exactly. Yeah. I I think, I just hope that people will start, paying more attention to actually what is happening, and that's, like back what we said before is just get involved a little bit. Once a month, once every 6 months or whatever, get on CP&W website, take a look at what the agendas are and what is happening, will give us a lot, you know, it'll give us a lot more education that we can educate other people. Like 127, I mean, all my neighbors, I had calls like I just put out a few signs,
You got a great big billboard down there at the highway
Yes, I
still.
do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I think it'll stay up.
Yeah.
But anyway, they all ask me. I see them daily. What do you think about it? What's going on? Take a few minutes, educate somebody. Just get the word out, and I think our wildlife and our ag and our gun control would would thrive here in Colorado. We just need the education and we need the backing.
Taking another direction, the type of sportsman that you've seen, has that changed in 30 years? About what they want or what they expect or what their capabilities or what their knowledge about, has that changed?
I think so. I think it's changed. I think it's changed a little bit, and I think and the reason why is because um of the tags that are they're produced. I mean, you just don't get one of those tags for every year. So, yeah, of course it's changed. They don't have a lot of education in that field. So,
Do you see, and I'm probably bastardizing this comment, but do you see the flannel blue jean guy as much as you used to?
no.
How's that changed?
Like my buddy said, that designer camo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody has to have designer camo. That's fine if that's what they want to wear. But yeah, the old style hunter. I mean, I remember a guy sheep hunting here. Oh, it's been 6, 7 years ago. He said, "Do you care if I wear my blue jeans tomorrow?" I said, "You can wear anything you want to. I don't care. That's up to you. That's your personal
I
deal."
killed a lot of elk and a lot of deer in blue jeans
You
and fucking
bet.
shirts and a Wrangler denim jacket.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that the flip side is, do you think that the accessories that we have today, camo and scent shield and all the different accoutrements that are available in the market, do you think that that provides a benefit now because there's so many backpackers and hikers and mountain bikers and boulder guys and stuff in the field? Or does that, in your opinion, does any of that stuff actually make a difference to what we have available to us?
For hunting wise,
Yeah.
for success wise,
Mhm.
to a degree,
Mhm.
um, the camo, those guys are supporters too. So yes, definitely, they're making things better. Um, in the field, like sprays and stuff, camo patterns. Um, yes, definitely. I think I can get a lot closer to a sheep wearing camo and the right stuff than I could with a pair of blue jeans and but if you go to the old traditionals, they say no.
Yeah.
I think you can. I think it has helped as far as uh But you still have to have a little bit of hunting knowledge.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you gotta use your head. I mean, you can't
You-
just walk out in the center of a field and think they're not gonna see it because you have camo on.
or turn around and walk with the wind and
Yeah.
and,
I
and
mean, there's variables. Excuse me. You can't just assume that you're invisible.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. What about the enhancement of other accessories and tools and accoutrements, whether it's the scopes and the rangefinders or the rifles, and do you see that is creating anything that maybe we've started to create our own worst enemy when it comes to public perception?
um, do I have to answer that? Well, you're talking to a bow hunter here, and when I take rifle hunters, um, the whole game's changed. I have to go into a different mode. Um, yes, I mean the rangefinders, the ability of the rifles today, um, are absolutely um, amazing what they can do and how far you can shoot. It's uh it's pretty eye-opening sometimes to a bow hunter. You go,
Mhm.
"Holy cow."
And
So
and and to comment on what you said earlier, as long as you can get it in the breadbasket, it doesn't really matter what you're shooting.
no,
Does it matter the distance that you're shooting as far as the perception of people? I mean, the reason I'm asking is because this is only going to continue to get better on the valuable assets that are created. But does it start to get into a fair chase component farther down the road? I mean, there's the electronic side of things. You can't use electronic side on bows. You can't use it on rifles and scopes and so forth. I mean, where do we get to a point from an outfitter perspective that you're looking at? And you're a traditional bow hunter, but I mean, they keep making stuff bigger, bigger, better, meaner, faster, stronger. And I don't care what it is.
exactly.
And so you start looking at fair chase. Where do we help define fair chase? Because that came into an equation with things on 127,
I know.
the GPS collars and tracking devices and hounds themselves. That's not fair chase. Well, those things there are about as antiquated as you can possibly get compared to some of the other things that are out there. And if they're already trying to bastardize those things as part of an antiquated fair chase component, it makes me wonder if that stuff goes, well, what other fair chase things do you get into down the road where, okay, let's talk about specific arrows or talk about crossbows or talk about long range rifles or rangefinders or illuminated reticles or whatever. For crying out loud, let's talk about cell phones and using Onyx Hunt.
What about
Uh,
drones?
exactly.
You know?
All of these things come in. You see some states have banned game cameras during hunting seasons.
Yeah.
Some have turned around and taken scopes off of muzzleloaders, which I hunted in New Mexico before, and I used a scope on there. Well, as bad as my eyes are without glasses in open sights, okay, now I'm at a disadvantage.
Right.
But where do we get to a point in your mind moving forward with things that we start to maybe really need to question not ourselves, but technical advancements and technological things that have not been before us?
That's a tough question. That's really a tough question. I mean, a lot of my clients today, are in their 70s. So, what's fair chase? I mean, like you said, what would it be okay for them to shoot 1,000 yards?
Mhm. If you're proficient
Yeah,
and you're not using electronics on the weapon,
right.
but when you have a windometer and you got your app on your phone
Yeah.
and you're laying all this out and you know your windage and your elevation and your adjustment and the bullet velocity and the coefficient and all the stuff that plays into that, is it fair chase? It is if you're 70 years old in a wheelchair.
That's what I say. I
You
mean,
know, or
it all depends on the person. I guess, your abilities. I don't really know how to answer that question. It's
Yeah.
a loaded question.
And I think that that's the problem is not very many people can answer that as well because and it takes me and it's a good segue to the next part of the question. Are hounds for lion hunting fair chase?
Well, let me ask you a question. How are you gonna control the population without a hound?
That's exactly right. So hounds have been traditionally utilized for mountain lions and bears and a variety of other game animals. Um, when somebody would walk up to you at the grocery store down here or whatever, and you've got hounds in your truck and there's a mountain lion on the box or there's blood on the box, and they came up to you and said, "What are you doing?" You said, "Well, we were hunting mountain lions." Well, with these dogs, that wouldn't be fair. What would be your answer?
Well, I would ask them, "What kind of, education on mountain lion hunting do you have?" And, I'm sure it wouldn't it's gonna be an argument.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not a confrontational person, so, I'm pretty calm. Didn't used to be, but, I think the lack of education, um, in that and what I would say, um, would be how many mountain lions have you ever seen? And where have you seen them? And how many do you think are here? I mean, the educational that's the problem. I think along the whole hunting community is of lack of education, but, I mean, just like bird hunters, can you hunt? Can you hunt birds without a dog?
Too.
Well, yeah.
Mhm.
Is it efficient?
Not as much.
No. Exactly, and I that's a hard question for me to answer to you, because it depends on the person and how well it is, but, I always try to stop and educate people when I can.
See, and I think that that's the answer I'm looking for too, Mark, because so many of our public that are sportsmen didn't even know that 127 was going on. So
No.
when somebody asked them about it, did they have the chance to educate them, or were they just dumbfounded as what the asker was? And I think that if we had an opportunity, and you mentioned this, if people just did a meeting, or if they did something with their legislator or something,
Something.
not a banquet, not a fundraiser, but an actual interaction with decision making people and processes. Um, trying to get our side to understand if somebody walks up to you and asks this or something along that line, do you have an answer? Or are you going to be derogatory or inflammatory or confrontational? And from an outfitter perspective, you can't because you're always in the sales mode. You're always in a defense mode of trying to do what's right from the perception of your business and you being on the landscape and utilizing public resources and the public trust doctrine and wildlife management and appeasing your client and also being considerate of the population and the management of that population, no matter what species it might be.
Absolutely.
And so having that education is imperative because if somebody called you and said, "Hey, my buddy says I need to go harvest a mountain lion, but I don't know anything about it," what would a sales pitch be from Mark Turner?
Well, my sales pitch would be, "Yes, a lot of fun. Do you know anything, what do you know about it?" And I'd start at the very beginning, and I'm gonna say, "Well, first of all, um, the license, you're gonna have to have a license. In order to get a license, you're gonna have to take an efficiency test. So you need to go do that, and after you do the efficiency test, um, then you can go buy a license, and when you buy a license, then we can start talking about what we have to accomplish to get you a lion. Is that something you really wanna do? I mean, a lot of this st in my country, it's tough, buddy.
Yeah.
It's sheep hunting,
Uh-huh.
I'm telling you, and I
Mhm.
I have a hard time with people, and I really try to emphasize that we're almost to 8,000 feet right here where we're sitting. So
You can only go up to about 6,000 feet
We're-
more.
we're only going up. We're not going down, and it's not flat, and it's tough and it's rough. And most of the time when you're hunting a lion and you look up on the hill and you see a nasty jagged piece of rock, that's where they're going to be. And you're going to be going through there. So your footwear, your clothing, we're going to go through the whole steps of what you need.
It could be a lot of snow. It's not like
Be a
it's
lot
gonna
of
be,
snow.
60 degrees and sunny out. Might be, but maybe not.
That's the kind we like.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's nasty, it's windy. Sometimes, you don't catch them. That's just, so we have to try a couple times, but I'd be more than happy to educate you about it and have your business. If you think you want to try it, let's try it. But I'm really careful with I'm really careful about what I can do for people. And if I can't do something for people, I tell them.
You don't want to build their expectations up and then fail.
Exactly. And one of my lines is, I can take your money, but you're not going to be able to do this. And I hate that. I mean, I want everybody to have a great time. I want everybody to succeed. I want everybody to enjoy the outdoors, and whether it's lion hunting or whatever it is, sheep hunting or moose hunting or whatever. I want you to be successful. And I'm going to tell you, it's just like the moose thing. You got 3 seasons. You got archery, you got muzzleloading, and you got rifle. And I'll get the guy saying, well, I'm not very good with a bow, but I'd like to try it. And I'll go, okay, first of all, we're going to have you shoot when you come here. And if you're not proficient, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take you, because it's not worth wounding an animal over. And the same with a muzzleloader or a rifle. I shoot with everybody. I make sure they're efficient. I go out of my way to help them meet their dreams, I guess. So I went off on some other phrase.
Oh, yes. Well, and it's all part of I think, at least for whatever audience we build up, the conversation can be shared at different levels, because people have a perception. A lot of people have a perception about the livestock industry. Don't know anything about the livestock industry. People have a perception about the outfitting industry. Don't know anything about the outfitting industry. People in our circles have perceptions about the outfitting industry, because they think that non-residents are coming to get their tags. And you just said it earlier that a lot of your customer base is residents, for whatever reasons. Maybe it's because of the unit, maybe because it's health issues, maybe because it's, wanting to base things off of your expertise. Maybe it's just because after 30 years, they don't have it in them anymore to turn around and spend 3 months in preparation for the hunt, because of a variety of different factors. I think that having some of these conversations, maybe if it educates a small percentage of the public, or maybe encourages a small percentage of the public to do something and get involved, whether it's maybe you draw that tag after 28 years and you turn around and hire an outfitter, or maybe you get involved in a specific organization that helps fight for the cause of something to keep things for sustainable management and perpetuity. Just having these open conversations, I think, is a big difference, because this isn't a business relationship. I'm not paying you and you're not giving me a contract. We're having a conversation about the landscape of what Colorado is, where it was, and what it's become, and personally for your lifestyle and so forth. And it's going to continue to change. It's just, how do we figure out a way to adapt to it? And what do we do in the future to make it at least as good as what we possibly can for that time? We know it's not going to be like it was 30 years ago, ever.
No.
But what I don't want to do is 30 years from now, when you and I are dead and gone, that somebody else is looking back and going, boy, that generation really screwed things up, and now we can't do any of that stuff. Now we have nothing to manage. Now we have nothing to pursue. They really didn't support us on any of the laws, rules, and regulations. We don't even have a game management agency anymore. That in itself would be a travesty.
Yes.
And I think these type of conversations bridge the gap for the public to decipher and disseminate whatever information they find out of these. I mean, it's no different than any of the other major podcast influencers that are having out there. They're trying to put people's perspectives together and boots on the ground experiences and their lifestyle of what they've got. And I just appreciate you taking the time to get together and letting us in your home and allowing us to see what you have and giving us a perspective on what you've done over the course of your life. You got anything that you'd want to a subject or something that's you got a chip on your shoulder, something you want to talk about or something you want to bring awareness to for anybody that would be watching, or how this could be distributed, next month, a year from now, 3 years from now, if they went back and watched this?
Well, I just, again, I'm beating it to death. Education, try to educate somebody, get involved, that's the main thing. We got to have involvement. I mean, I know everybody's tired. I know you're tired. I'm tired.
Do I look tired? I didn't
Well.
think it. Ask my
Anyway.
wife I'm tired.
Yeah, exactly. But we got to keep moving on it, and we got to stay together. Like you said, we're all in this thing, whether you're ag or your gun control or your wildlife management or whatever, but we're all one team. And the more we can educate people, the better off we'll all be. And we'll have more opportunity to do what we like to do.
What's your wish in the next year for you and your wife and your business?
Well, my stuff's kind of I'm gonna, like I told you, I had a hunt booked here in 2026 for a mountain caribou hunt. That's my goal. That'd give me 25 species with a longbow in North America, which would be awesome for me. But my wish and my dreams is to have my wife go through the Colorado Big 8 and complete her stuff for bow hunting. And along with that is to provide the hunts we've been doing for the clients, and make their dreams and wishes come true. But and we all, my wife loves it. I don't know why. I got married at a late age, and she never was a hunter. So to get her into hunting and with a traditional bow, teaching her how to shoot. I've been with her on almost all her harvest. She's harvested a black bear and a couple of 2 or 3 antelope, a mule deer, a white-tailed deer. So she's walked through this thing, which is totally amazing to me. And she's a heck of a shot. But that's my wishes for that, and to educate the general public, just about the hunting and
How important it is.
yes.
You want to do a shout out or a call out to anybody that you worked with in the past or that you're working with in the present that has helped you in your conquering of what you've done over the course of your career?
Oh yeah, all my guides, Brandon Powell, he's been with me for 20 years. Big shout out to him. All the archery organizations, Colorado Traditional Bow Hunting Society, CBA. All those guys were great supporters. Some of the smaller groups, Golden Archers, and I know they were all really active in 127. I'm sure there's some I'm missing here. But yeah, I mean, those guys, the Bighorn Sheep Society, which has been, they're very supporting, and we support them and they support us. So, all these organizations are good organizations, and they're on our team. Let's support them and get membership, and of course you guys. I mean, if it wasn't for you, Dan, I don't know where we'd be. So
We'd be aimlessly wandering in the weeds, bouncing off of walls or something. But
yeah.
no, and I appreciate the kudos. Sean, you got any questions that you wanna give to him because you live up in this area, or anything on the?
Well, just from a guide standpoint, people get hung up on I gotta get this, I gotta get. What do you hope hunters get out of a hunt with you?
Good question.
Well, I hope I hope I can teach them something. I hope I can, you know, elevate their hunting skills. You know, I can teach them. I mean, like I was telling you, very beginning, the thing that taught me most about hunting was trapping and how the movement of the animals were. I hope I can teach people that. I mean, all this stuff that I've learned, I would love to pass it on to anybody who wants to listen. So,
It's a good answer. What's the best way? I'm going to let you do some plugs here. What's the best way for somebody to get in touch with you, either website, email, or whatever?
we have a website. You can Google Turner Guide Service and it'll pop up rmbga.com, and it kind of go through it. It's got different species: moose, sheep, goat, whatever. You can click on that and it shows you all all some of our harvests, not all of them, but in each species, and kind of gives me I have a profile in there of myself, and kind of what to expect and what units we have. So that's a good place to get a hold
And
of
we can
us.
include your information on the podcast itself as well. And then I'm sure that you'll just get like hundreds of thousands of inquiries and
Yes, sir. You promise?
if that happens, let me know. 'Cause,
Yeah.
our viewership and listenership is increasing steadily, but if you get hundreds of thousands, we need to turn around and get together again. So,
Yeah.
if somebody wanted to start preparing for, let's just say, the big three in Colorado: moose, goat, and sheep, that's something, if they've never done that before, or they're on the infancy stages of it, they can luck out and draw after essentially being in the draw 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
But do you got any words of advice for somebody that's looking for something that typically, not always, but typically takes an extended amount of time to be able to acquire the license? And the flip side of that is, in deer and elk units that take 10 or 12 or 15 points, do you think that they need to just concentrate on one unit, or do you spread the wealth out and your chances of success of drawing? What's your recommendation for that? Because a lot of the guys, they'll throw a dart at the wall and see what sticks. Or do you stick with one unit and one guide in one area you're comfortable with? What's your recommendations for a guy that doesn't really know?
Well, what I tell everybody, I mean, I have quite a few followers being in the business that long. I tell them basically to stick with one unit unless something catastrophically happens to that program or that species in that unit.
Disease, fire.
Yeah, and a lot of things can happen. But I like to stay with the same unit, with the same person, that's kind of how I do that. Um, one of the biggest problems that I get a lot of calls. Can you guide me over here in Creede, Colorado? No, I can't do it. I don't have permits over it. So for somebody that's new and wants, I'm always willing to talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to come and they want to say, hey, um, what units do you guide in? That's the biggest thing. I get calls all the time, and you know, half of these I've never even been to. So have a plan, talk to your outfitters that you want to go. If you think that's a good unit, have a plan, talk to them, see what you need every year. I mean, I have people call me every year and a lot, before the draw. Holy cow. I mean, it's just like, hello, 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 and phones are ringing, and you can't answer everybody at the same time, but, or email, topguide@comcast.net. It's pretty simple.
Topguide@comcast.net.
Yeah, it's, I'll talk to you. If you want to go over there, I can bring up the Colorado Outfitters Association. If you're in a different unit, I'll say, this guy, guides over there, maybe talk to him. But if you want to go with me, these are the units that I guide you.
But in this circle, you guys work together pretty frequently. I mean, you got connections all over the state. You know guys all over the country, probably to some degree. And so if somebody has a question, they could be referred to you, or you might likely refer somebody to somebody else.
Absolutely.
But do the research ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah. Being unprepared, and somebody calls me up and says, well, Hunt and Full told me that this was the best it was the least amount of preference points you needed to draw this sheep. Do you know why?
Yeah.
Honestly, do you know why?
Uh-huh.
No, but man, I drew this tag, and do you know what it takes to get there, and how rough it is, and what the altitude is, and blah, blah, blah. Like, hunting in the Northwest Territory, any of that, is a piece of cake to me, because it's 45 feet of elevation at the highest peak you can ever. Is it steep? Oh, yes. Very steep. My lungs could run backwards up that thing. Here, that's not going to happen. We're going to start at 9,000 feet, and we're going to go up from there. So having that knowledge, and I wish I could educate all the hunters on that before they put in for a tag, because, I mean, they get here and after the first couple of days, sometimes they realize they can't do this. And I had people quit on me? Absolutely.
12 and 13,000 feet is a lot different than 6,500,
yes.
where it looks like it's the same.
Exactly.
Significantly. That's the difference between Pikes Peak and Mount Everest.
Yes.
Exactly. You might be able to traverse Mount Everest, but you're not going to hunt on Mount Everest.
Right.
And I think that, those are good piece of advice, words of wisdom, that preparation at all levels. And the older that you get, the more in shape you need to be.
Yes.
The younger you are, don't take it for granted that the altitude or your lack of physical capabilities will be able to turn around and keep up with Mark Turner,
right.
Bouldering.
Yeah.
You don't boulder, do you?
Well, yes, but not that kind.
You don't do it out of fun.
I might do some hopping, but I ain't gonna do some no climbing.
Yeah. Well, if I was to say anything, I would say, first and foremost, thanks for your support and your willingness to engage last year. You and I don't know each other very well, but we've become. It seemed like we run into each other more and more frequently because of things that have drawn us together.
Right.
And not only do I appreciate that, I appreciate you picking up the phone and always be willing to do what was necessary during the last 20 months of what we've had to work on, because you had just as much interest in it as what we did.
Yes.
But you were willing to carry the water on a lot of those conversations and those interactions and the education side of things. Not very infrequently, very frequently, people had told some of our staff and some of our supporters at different events, oh, I saw Mark Turner there, or Mark Turner said this, or Mark Turner was doing that. Now, you're not the only one that did that, but it's nice to see other people out there turn around and taking the lead from other people that they respected, or that maybe brought them into that conversation on how to get engaged at different levels. So appreciate that very much.
Well, you're very welcome. I mean, it's for all of us. It's not just for me and you. It's for everybody.
Give us the business name again.
It is Turner Guide Service, Rocky Mountain Big Game Adventures. Website is rmbga.com. turnerguide.com, or you can Google Turner Guide Service.
And the primary areas that you hunt in, the game management units you hunt in, are which ones again?
Well, we do 28, we do 39, we do 46, we do 500, we do 501, we do 49, and 37, 371. So basically, almost from the park, Estes Park, to Leadville, kind of the whole Rocky Mountain region there.
Big area.
Yep.
Big area.
Huge. But taking me a long time to get there.
Yeah. Well, Mark, we appreciate you taking the time, inviting us into your house. Look forward to having future conversations. And I know our paths are going to continue to cross because of the political landscape that we have to deal with. And hopefully we do good enough by you guys, but we know that you're out there spreading the word and trying to do as much as what we possibly can on our end.
Yes. Well, thank you, Dan. Thanks for the leadership.
You bet. Thanks. So another episode of Through the Gates. Mark Turner, a professional guide and outfitter here in Idaho Springs, Colorado. Follow him on Instagram. You got Instagram and Facebook.
Yes.
And so you want to give those things?
Yeah, Facebook is just I just post on Facebook. I don't do Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what is it, just under Mark Turner or your?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, give him a follow, give him a listen, like, share, and follow and subscribe to any of our stuff with Through the Gates, and also follow us on Instagram and Facebook as well. In the meantime, aim small, miss small, and stay the course.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Through the Gates. For more content like this, make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe on all of our channels.